So, yesterday we finished. First of all, anyone who wants to join us could send a text 732-444-8549. We're live on Zoom every day about 1:30. We try to keep it to 15 to 20 minutes. Let's start. So yesterday we concluded the first Pirkei of Shemona Prakim, and now we move on to the second Pirkei. Now let's give a shtickle sikum to the first Pirkei, and that's going to carry us through. So because we had a whole bunch of shurim. Now let's make a little. Let's make a little seder, but not particularly in the order that the Rambam said it. Let's start with the fundamental idea of Chomer and Tzura. Yesterday, let me just bring it out a little clearer. Today I was driving, and the basic metaphor of a race car came to mind. So let's say that our general goal is to race and win the Daytona 500, right? So that is the goal, right? The goal is to be able to race at a professional level, but being so the first thing is that we have to understand what our goal is. So that's our goal. So we determined what our goal is. That's very important. For that, before we talk about racing, we first need to understand the vehicle and the instrument that we're going to use to get there. So we could talk about racing for 100 years, but if we don't have a vehicle, then we can't race. So what the Rambam makes it very clear, we're not going to talk about racing at all. That's not the point of Masechtas Avos. The point of Masechtas Avos is to bring ourselves to a situation where we can reach the Tachlis, and the Tachlis is Das, and so the first thing is we need to understand what we are. Look at yourself because you are the vehicle. So you have to have a car. When you have a car and you look at it like a piece of metal and rubber and a whole bunch of these things together, then you're not looking at a car. Because if you look at a car that way, then you might as well use it for storage, right? You could use it. You could use a car for a million things. You could use it as a place to play music. So if you think that a car is the stereo system or just a place to give you cover from rain, that you're not looking at a car, and it's not something that's going to help you get anywhere. So the first thing is, when we talk about Chomer v'Tzura, the matter of a car is metal and rubber and a stereo system. That's the matter. The form of it is when we understand that this is something that's now not only any car, right? So if you have an advanced race car and you treat it the same way someone would treat any car, and he looks at, okay, that's a car, but it's not a car because a Prius is also a car, right? And it's not going to get you anywhere. So the point is that you have to understand what is that you have here, and you have here a race car, and that is the form, right? That's not the matter. That's the form. And if you understand what the form is, and that's what we said yesterday, it gives it its identity, it gives it its actual physical form, and it gives it its purpose. So when we understand when we look at something by its form and not by its matter, that's when we could attempt to use it the right way and actually get anywhere with it. So the first thing is, when you look at a human being, what do you see? You look at a person, what do you see? If you see a clump of matter, if you see an animal, then you're not going to get anywhere with this in life, right? You're not going to actualize the potential of the person at hand because you don't understand what a person is. So the first thing is, a person is a bar das. A person has das. That's gamba loy das nefesh loy tov. The tachlis of a person is the nefesh hasichli. And when we understand that the tachlis of a person is the nefesh hasichli, then and only then we're going to be motivated to use the potential of this person and to actually work on a goal to get to Shleimus Hadas. Now, the Rama makes it very clear. The sugi of Shleimus Hadas, that's racing. We're not there now. So we have to understand it at the get-go. We have to understand right away what the tachlis is. We have to identify the person by the tachlis. You have to identify the car as a race car. You have to identify the person as a person of das. But we're not going to go there now. We are very far from actually talking about das, and that's why das we're going to talk about in the Sefer HaNevuah. That's more Nevuchim. That's when we're talking about the actual milas of das. And I stress it because we're going to get back to this in Perek Sheni also. Now now that we know what the tachlis is, now we know what the form, the tzura of it is, now you have to know, now let's go back to the body shop. And now let's figure out what it is that we're looking at. No, a car has a transmission, it has, I have no idea how a car works, but the idea, I know that there's a transmission because I know that mine broke a couple of times. But so there's a transmission and there's a steering and there's gears and stuff, right? So when you understand what the makeup of the car is, the reason why we need to understand what the makeup of the car is because your car is broken. And you have to know that your car is broken. We all are born but by the time you're reading Shemona Prakim, your car is pretty broken. So your car, it needs help, right? So you have to understand that there's a transmission, you have to understand how the gas system works, and you have to understand how the gears work, and you have to know all that. Once you know what every part does to the car, what every part contributes, you understand that all the pieces involved, then you'll be able to detect. You can read that thing, right? You read the thing that has the flashing lights. You understand, what's broken, what you need to do to fix it, and slowly but surely you'll be able to identify the things that are going wrong, and you'll know the treatment that you have to give it. Ultimately, throughout many years of first understanding and identifying, and understanding what makes it healthy and what makes it broken, functional, dysfunctional, you'll get to the tachlis of being able to finally get to the race. So that is what we saw until now. Until now, the Rambam identified the various different key components that make up the nefesh. Now, obviously, the nefesh adam and nefesh achasu, and like a car, all these things work together. Even if you have a functional transmission, if you don't have a functional steering system, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to smash into the first tree. So these things all need to work together. So for that, we need to understand nefesh adam, nefesh achasu. It's one nefesh. Now, the key components, the key parts, the Rambam gave us 5. We'll just, repeat it now, mamash, in a minute. The 5 were from bottom up. That's like a pyramid. From the bottom up, you have the nutritive soul, the sensitive sensory soul, right? That's the 5 senses. You go up a level, we saw the imaginative soul, and then we had the emotional, conscious, appetitive soul, and then we had the nefesh sechli. All the way on the top, that's the reason, the intellect. Now we go to the second parak. Now the second parak, the Rambam is going to say, okay, now we're one level. We understand, we understand all the parts. Now let's identify what are the parts we need to work with. So what we finished off last parak is what we're not going to work with. We're not talking about the seichel. The seichel is way ahead of us. The seichel is the tachlis. We're now looking to fix the car, fix the machine, understand the machine, and you should be able to fix the machine. So we're not talking about the race yet. So that we know. We're not talking about the nefesh sechli. But when we want to fix the nefesh adam, where is it that we need to focus? Haperak hasheni. So the title is B'meryei koiches hanefesh u'biyedias hachelek hasheboy oyloi yimtzeu hamayles v'apchisios. So this is Rabbi Shmuel ben Tibn's language. It's extremely rough. But anyway, so da. Ki ameri v'mashmas hatoyrim ימצאו לשני חלוקים בחלקי הנפש. הם החלק המרגיש והחלק המסויר לבדום. ובשני אלו החלוקים יהיו כל העבירות והמצוות. Okay. So the first thing he says like this. All the aveiros and the mitzvahs are in 2 of the 5. I'm going to say what he says, Baal Peh, and then we'll see it in Zayv. Because we need to work out what he says over here. So, what he says is like this. In the Torah, first of all, Perek Aleph is something that was pretty much not, we didn't see the Torah at all. It was pure, you could say it was pure, mamish pure philosophy. It was understanding the nefesh, understanding the faculties of the nefesh. Besides, pushing in the gam b'lo das nefesh lo toiv, there was nothing you could say Torah really in Perek Aleph. Perek Beis, he starts with talking about mitzvahs and aveiros. Now, the mitzvahs and aveiros are only in 2 out of the 5. Now, let's talk about the digestive system. Digestive system, the reproductive system, the growth hormones, right? The pancreas, the thyroid, I don't know. When we're talking about the nutritive soul, the Torah is not talking. It's not about b'chira. Again, a fundamental thing also in Das Rambam, b'chalal, he's going to get to it later in Shemona Prakim, and he talks about it in Mishnah Torah also. Something very important in Das Rambam is you can only talk about b'chira. So your digestive system is not about b'chira. It works with whatever it's dealt. You feed it something, it works with it. So it's not someone that chose anything. So therefore, there's no mitzvah on the digestive system. Eating matzah is not a mitzvah to your digestive system. Your digestive system is going to eat matzah, it's going to eat chazer, it's going to eat whatever you're served. So when it's something working, your digestive system and any other organs are working on an autopilot, and they work with whatever they're served. So it's obvious that the nutritive soul doesn't have any mitzvahs and averos. You can't talk to it because it doesn't have a choice. You don't have a choice to tell your stomach to stop working. Now, when we're talking about mitzvahs and averos, there's two of them. There is the senses, because the senses are actually, right? We're talking about eating matzah or not eating chazer, then we're talking about the koich hamishus, we're talking about taste, we're talking about the physical, sensory soul. So that we can talk to that. You're talking about looking with your eyes, hearing shofar, not hearing lashon hara, talking nivel peh, talking divrei Torah. These are all from the sensory soul. So we talk to the sensory soul, and the other one that the mitzvahs and averos are in the realm of the appetitive soul, the emotional soul. The koyach hamadame, says the Rambam, and this is very interesting. The koyach hamadame, the imaginative soul, is not a Baal Bechira. And the logic of it, the Rambam says, is very interesting. So the Rambam says that the imaginative soul works when a person is sleeping. Meaning, if the imaginative soul works when the person is sleeping, it means it doesn't need the person's consciousness. Meaning that if it doesn't need the person's, then it's not a Baal Bechira. It works automatically. So this is something we need to think about for a second. The Nefesh HaSichli, let's put aside, because we're going to get to the Nefesh HaSichli. Now let's just talk about something we all understand. We all understand that your stomach and pancreas are not Baalei Bechira, and that's why the Torah never talks to someone who's not a Baal Bechira. Just like the Torah doesn't talk to a Tinek Ben Yoimai, the Torah doesn't talk to your stomach. Very good. So there's no mitzvahs and averos pertaining to your stomach. There's mitzvahs and averos pertaining to your five senses, what you should look at, what you shouldn't look at, what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. And then there are mitzvahs and averos, b'negeya, the emotional nefesh, let's talk about. What you love, what you hate, the taiva, the kinna taiva kovet, the part of your body that desires, so that is the two nefashos that we are going to deal with. The chushim, the senses, and the appetite. The taiva, the desire. Now, you can ask, what's with the dimyan? Right? There are so many mitzvahs and averos that involve dimyan of a person. You think about hirurei avera, which is the first thing you think about sometimes in avodas Hashem. That's that is so much part of our avodas Hashem, and it's so much, and even in mitzvahs, not only in averos. So in averos you have hirurei avera, the surah achar lebachem v'chenechem, and then you have, so the nechem part is that, but I'm talking about the surah achar lebachem, and then you have mitzvahs like chayv adam leres atzmi kelu yatzim mitzrayim. You have mitzvahs of that involve dimyan, right? Imagining that you were zechoyer yom shemadat lefnei shemadacha b'chorev, which again we mentioned that the Kuzari says that is the reason, the purpose why the Torah gave us dimyan, that we should be able to visualize us standing by Mount Torah. So these are mitzvahs esed d'oraisa that involve dimyan. They involve imagination. So yeah, you have to see, and verstetzach, the Ruach is something we don't even have to talk about. So l'chayre, what is the Rambam saying? So I think we need to be oimed on a gewaldige in the kudah the Rambam is saying over here. The Rambam is saying from the fact that your dimyan, that your imagination operates while you're asleep, it means that it's like the stomach almost. It means that your imagination works constantly, whether you like it or not. You have an imagination. Now, the question is what you're going to feed it. If you're going to feed it good machshavas, then it's going to work with good machshavas. If you're going to feed it bad machshavas, then it's going to work through these bad machshavas. But the Torah doesn't have a teviyah to the dimyan. Think good, imagine good in yonam and don't imagine bad things. The Torah doesn't talk to the dimyan because the dimyan works whether you like it or not. Now the Torah comes to the nefesh HaMesayir, the Torah comes to the appetitive soul, to the conscious, to the desired soul, and the Torah says, be careful what you feed. Just like the Torah says to the five senses, be careful what you feed your stomach. The Torah says to the appetite, so be careful what you feed your dimyan. Your imagination is going to work with whatever you give it. So be careful, and that's why when we're talking about the surah achar lebavchem, we are not talking to the dimyan. We're talking to the to the Nefesh HaMesayir. We're telling the Nefesh HaMesayir, you shouldn't feed your dimion that's going to work constantly. And your dimion is an autopilot system because it works, you see, it works when people are sleeping. So be careful what you feed that dimion. So now we have these five. Now let's talk now about the das. So the das, there are mitzvahs and averos pertaining das, but, and matter of fact, the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs organizes the mitzvahs not in the chronological seder, in the seder of importance, right? So whatever he thinks is more important in Yiddishkeit and more fundamental, that is the seder. The first mitzvah is ladas, keyword ladas, not lahaman, but that's something we can talk about at a different time. Ladas, that there's a boira, right? Yidiyas Hashem. Yidiyas Hashem is the biggest mitzvah in the Torah. Now, Yidiyas Hashem is the sichli, is the mitzvah. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Adonai Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. The most important mitzvah in the entire Torah is a mitzvah sichlis. So why do you say that the Torah doesn't? That the Torah only talks to the appetite of soul and to the sensory soul? L'chayre, the tachlis kol Torah kula is the das. So why don't you say the Torah talks to that? Says the Rambam, that's exactly what I'm not talking about it. Again, because you're right about it, there are mitzvah sichlias. The biggest thing in the world is Yidiyas Hashem. The worst thing in the world is Avodah Zarah. And these are both in Yonim that have to do with Das. But because they are the biggest and the most important and the most detrimental, that's why I'm not talking about it, because I'm not talking about the race, I'm talking about the car. And that's why we have to focus on the midas. Evade, when we'll get to the tachlis, and once we have everything figured out, we could talk about Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, we could talk about the Das. But for our job, and so let's see what the Rambam says. Da Meri v'mashmas. That is the Meri is the loisase is rebelling, right? So these are rebelling against Hashem. V'mashmas is listening, accepting, submitting. The Meri v'mashmas atorium amnam yimtzu l'shnei chalokim echelkei nefesh. V'hem chelek hamargish. That is the sensory soul. The chelik hamasari levadam. Only the chelik hamargish and the chelik hamasari is the appetite, is the desire. Levadam. B'shnei elo chalakim yu kol averes hamitzvos. All the averes and the mitzvahs in the Torah. Aval chelik hazan, which is the nutritive soul. V'chelik hamadam, that's the imaginary soul. Ema shamas mevlemeri. There's no mitzvahs and averes. Why? Hol ve'en ladas ulebchir b'shnei maaseh klal. There's no action that any of them can do, and so neither one of them don't have any. There's no pa'ula that they do. There's no pa'ula that only they do. Anything that they do, they are fed by someone else. So that's why. And the rai is that both of these two things, and only these two things, work when a person is sleeping. So your digestive system works when you're sleeping, and your bodily inner bodily functions work when you're sleeping, and your imagination works when you're sleeping. But your senses, you don't feel, you don't smell, you don't hear when you sleep, right? If you hear something, you wake up because you can't hear and sleep at the same time. And the same thing is, you're right, you don't see. The five senses are dead when a person's sleeping. They're not dead; they're dormant, and so they. And obviously the brain isn't working. The imagination is working, but the logic and reason is not working. So he says, you can't stop it. You can't stop yourself from dreaming. You can't stop yourself. You can't stop your digestive system from doing its job, and you can't stop your imagination, which is very interesting. I can't stop my imagination. For sure I could. You're right, you could. But what's going to stop it is not the imagination, minei ubei. What's going to stop it is you have to have someone else stop it. It's like the digestive system could, you can't stop your digestive system from digesting whatever food you put in. Now you could do an other extreme action, like you make yourself vomit out the food, but that is not something, right? That's not something that the digestive system did. So the same way, maybe when someone's indulging in bad thoughts, then he could stop. But it's not that the imagination itself is going to stop. It's if other power is going to step in and call the shots. Fine. Now, haloi tirek kishnei alach lokim return alam hazan ramadam yibal beis hashayin amashayin kemishar koich sanefesh. Namachelek hasichli yesh b'mavuk. The reason, the mind, the intellect, there it's a little confusing. Obviously, there are mitzvahs and averes in the intellectual reason soul also. If you have emunah betela, like Avodah Zarah, or emunah mitzvahs, which is yichud Hashem. And by the way, not only they also have Torah mitzvahs, but they are the tachlis of the Torah mitzvahs. Aval ein by ma'aseh sheyomer olav b'stam shem ma'aseh mitzvah or avera. He said there's no action that the mind does. So I think what he means is, is that the actions of a person, and we saw in the Hakdamat Shemona Prakim, that the actions of a person shape his nefesh. And the nefesh in turn, like this, when a person's nefesh is functional, he could attain das. Once a person attains das, that itself has a further relationship with the nefesh of the person, and that purifies the nefesh further. Now, what the Rambam is saying is, in the mind there's no maisa. There's no maisa that the mind itself does. The mind either has good days or bad days. Now, to get to the good, there's no action in it. The action is controlled by the appetite and the chushim. Now, once they are, if they're functional, then you have good days. If you're dysfunctional, then you have corrupt days. But when we're talking Masechet Avos, we're talking about actions that we could fix, actions that we should stay away, how we fix anything that has to do with the motor and the machine, and not the tachlis itself. Because the tachlis is when we reach there already. So there's no maisa in the mind. The mind is the goal, the destination. So, therefore, we're going to have to stop here. So we got halfway through the Pirkei, and what we learned today is we're identifying the patient, right? If Pirkei Avos, we're going for treatment, who is the patient? We have 5 chelkei nefesh. Once you understand the car, the machine that we're looking at, we're identifying the lights on the screen that are blinking. Which are the ones that need our attention? The nutritive soul does not need our attention for now, and neither does the imagination. We don't have to focus on them. What we need to focus on is the sensory soul and the appetitive soul. The intellectual soul, even though it has mitzvahs and averos, is not either our reason for concern. That is way ahead of us. We'll get there, Mitzvah Shem, after Shemona Prakim. But now we're focusing on these signals that go on, and these are the appetitive and sensory. See you tomorrow again. Kol Tov, all the best.